They laughed before she sang, and that laughter mattered more than anyone realized. On a night meant to celebrate talent across Asia, the Filipino woman standing alone on that massive stage was already judged. Her clothes were simple, her accent thick, her posture cautious. Online chatter exploded within seconds, mocking her confidence, questioning why she even tried. The cameras caught smirks, raised eyebrows, whispers disguised as politeness. This was not her first humiliation, only the largest audience she had ever faced. What viewers didn't know was that she had already survived years of rejection, hunger, and quiet endurance long before this moment. This performance was never about applause. It was about survival, dignity, and a promise she made to herself when nobody else believed she mattered. Her name barely registered with the audience, yet her story had been forming long before this stage existed. She grew up in a crowded Filipino neighborhood where music was never a luxury, but a necessity. Singing was how electricity outages felt shorter, how unpaid bills felt lighter, how grief softened. While other children dreamed of fame, she sang to keep her family steady. Talent competitions were distant fantasies watched on borrowed televisions. When she finally auditioned for Asia's Got Talent, it wasn't confidence that carried her there, but exhaustion. She was tired of being unseen. Tired of being told her voice was too old-fashioned, too emotional, too Filipino. She came not to impress judges, but to finally stop apologizing for who she was. Before that audition, rejection had become routine. Choirs dismissed her tone as outdated. Producers advised her to change her accent, her style, even her name. Each no came wrapped in polite smiles that hurt more than insults. Friends urged her to stop chasing impossible dreams and focus on real life. But singing had never been a hobby for her. It was the one place where she felt whole. When she filled out the Asia's Got Talent form, she did it quietly, without announcement or expectation. She borrowed money for transportation. She rehearsed at night to avoid disturbing neighbors. She arrived early, stood alone, and waited. Nobody noticed her then. That invisibility would soon become the very thing people would regret. The mockery didn't start on stage. It began online the moment promotional clips aired. Viewers made assumptions based on her appearance and background. Comment sections filled with cruel predictions, jokes, and dismissive remarks. Some questioned why contestants like her were allowed to audition at all. Others reduced her identity to stereotypes they barely understood. She never read those comments, but their impact existed nonetheless. That negativity shaped expectations before a single note was sung. Even the judges appeared cautiously disengaged, prepared for disappointment. In talent competitions, perception often matters more than ability. That night, perception leaned heavily against her. What followed would force millions to confront how easily they underestimated someone simply because she didn't fit their idea of greatness. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled, not from fear, but from restraint. She had learned to hold herself back, to take up less space, to expect little. She introduced herself briefly, without embellishment. No dramatic backstory. No emotional plea. Just a name and a song choice that raised eyebrows. Some whispered that it was too ambitious. Others assumed she would fail within seconds. The judges exchanged looks, already preparing polite responses. This moment, however, was not about them. It was about years of silence waiting to be broken. As the music began, she closed her eyes, not to block the audience, but to remember why she started singing in the first place. That decision changed everything.
Kay dami ng multo sa nakaraan. Wag nang balikan, wag nang pag-usapan pa. Kaya't halika na, dito ka na lang. Di na babalik, di na magtatago. Kakalimutan na kita, aking multo. But why are you still in my mind? 'Cause I don't wanna be lonely, lonely, alone.
The first note did not explode. It didn't shout for attention. It arrived gently, confidently, unapologetically itself. That softness caught everyone off guard. Conversations stopped. Smiles faded. Something unfamiliar filled the room. Her voice carried history, discipline, and emotion shaped by real struggle. Each phrase felt deliberate, as if she was speaking directly to those who doubted her. The mockery didn't vanish instantly, but it cracked. People leaned forward. Judges straightened in their chairs. The song unfolded patiently, refusing to rush or impress. It demanded listening. By the time she reached the chorus, the room had changed. Not because she was loud, but because she was undeniable. Silence replaced judgment, and silence least. Ned. As the performance continued, something deeper surfaced. This was not technical perfection polished for competition. It was truth, delivered without apology. Her voice carried pain without bitterness and hope without desperation. Viewers at home felt it too, though many didn't understand why. This was the sound of someone who had nothing left to prove. The laughter from earlier clips became embarrassing in hindsight. Online reactions shifted in real time. Comments slowed. Emojis replaced words. Critics paused. The judges, trained to analyze control and range, found themselves reacting emotionally instead. That loss of objectivity was significant. Talent shows thrive on critique, yet here was a performance that resisted judgment. It simply existed, powerful and complete, demanding respect without asking FO. Alright. By the final note, the room held its breath. No dramatic gesture followed. No forced smile. She stood still, waiting. The silence stretched longer than applause ever could. Then it happened. One judge stood. Then another. Applause erupted, not polite but urgent, almost apologetic. This was not just admiration. It was recognition. Recognition that something rare had just occurred. The Filipino singer everyone mocked had shifted the emotional gravity of the competition in minutes. Judges struggled to articulate what they felt. Words like unexpected and authentic filled the air. She nodded quietly, absorbing none of it outwardly. Years of dismissal had trained her not to trust praise. What mattered was that, for once, her voice had spoken louder than assumptions. The performance went viral before the episode even finished airing. Clips spread across platforms, often paired with screenshots of earlier mocking comments. The internet performed its familiar reversal, celebrating what it once dismissed. Support poured in from unexpected places. Filipinos around the world felt represented, not because she won yet, but because she stood unaltered and was heard. Media outlets rushed to frame her as an overnight sensation, ignoring the decades behind that moment. Interviews followed, but she remained measured, careful with her words. She refused to dramatize her hardship. She didn't accuse anyone. That restraint earned more respect than outrage ever could. In a space built on spectacle, her quiet dignity became her defining trait. As the competition progressed, the pressure intensified. Expectations replaced doubt, and that shift carried its own weight. Each performance was now scrutinized, compared, dissected. Some critics waited eagerly for her to falter, hoping to confirm their original judgments. Others demanded constant emotional peaks, forgetting she was human. Through it all, she remained steady. She selected songs that honored her roots, refusing to dilute her identity for broader appeal. That choice was risky. It defied industry logic. Yet each week she advanced. Not because she adapted to the show, but because the show slowly adapted to her. Judges began referencing her emotional intelligence, her restraint, her consistency. She was no longer an underdog. She was a standard others were measured against. Behind the scenes, her routine was disciplined and quiet. No entourage. No dramatic rituals. She practiced, rested, and called home. Her family reminded her of who she was before the cameras. That grounding mattered. Fame can distort intention, but she treated the competition as temporary. Winning was not the goal. Representation was. She spoke openly about Filipinos often being reduced to stereotypes in global entertainment. Her presence challenged that subtly, without speeches or slogans. Every performance carried that message implicitly. Viewers didn't need to be told. They felt it. She was not trying to change minds. She was simply being visible in a space that rarely made room for voices like hers, and that visibility carried power. As finals approached, narratives intensified. Media framed her as a symbol, a movement, a moment. She resisted those labels. She understood how quickly symbols are discarded once they stop being convenient. What sustained her was not public opinion, but personal resolve. On finale night, anticipation was heavy. Competitors delivered technically impressive performances. Fireworks, theatrics, precision filled the stage. When it was her turn, she chose simplicity again. No spectacle, just voice and intention. That choice was either foolish or brilliant. It turned out to be both. Her final performance did not overwhelm. It resonated. It lingered. When voting opened, nobody spoke confidently. The outcome felt uncertain, balanced on something intangible that numbers alone couldn't explain. The results announcement unfolded slowly, deliberately building tension. She stood calmly, hands folded, expression unreadable. She had prepared herself for loss. Winning would be affirming, but losing would not erase what she had already achieved. When her name was finally called, the reaction was explosive. Cheers erupted across the venue and online simultaneously. The Filipino singer everyone mocked had just won Asia's Got Talent. Cameras captured disbelief, joy, and something else entirely: accountability. Judges applauded harder than before. Commentators struggled to contextualize the moment. This wasn't just a victory. It was a correction. A public acknowledgement that talent does not announce itself in familiar packaging. Sometimes it arrives quietly, waits patiently, and then changes the narrative permanent. Her acceptance was brief and composed. She thanked her family, her country, and those who listened. No triumphal speech. No victory lap. That restraint deepened the impact. In refusing to perform gratitude theatrically, she reclaimed control of her story. The show ended, but its effects continued. Discussions emerged about bias, representation, and the assumptions audiences bring to entertainment. Schools shared her performance. Choir directors referenced her technique. Aspiring singers found courage in her journey. For many Filipinos, her win felt personal. Not because she claimed to represent them, but because she refused to hide who she was. That authenticity resonated far beyond the competition, planting seeds in places she would never see. Opportunities followed as expected. Record labels called. International invitations arrived. She navigated them carefully, aware of how quickly industry interest can turn transactional. She declined projects that required altering her voice or image. That decision surprised many. Success often demands compromise, but she understood the cost. The same qualities that made her win were the ones others wanted to reshape. She refused. Instead, she focused on sustainable growth, collaborations rooted in respect, and performances that aligned with her values. Fame was new, but self-awareness was not. She had spent too long being invisible to surrender agency now. That insistence on boundaries became as influential as her music, redefining what winning truly am. Looking back, the mockery that once defined her introduction became a footnote. Yet she never dismissed it. She acknowledged its role in shaping the moment. Without that doubt, the victory would have been smaller. Without underestimation, the lesson would have been weaker. Her story became a case study in how prejudice operates quietly and how excellence disrupts it without confrontation. Universities discussed her impact. Cultural commentators analyzed her choices. She remained focused on singing. Interviews often tried to provoke emotional reactions to past insults. She declined to relive them publicly. Healing, she believed, did not require constant retelling of pain. It required progress. Her career moved forward deliberately, anchored in that philosophy. Years later, clips of her first auditions still circulate, often framed as inspirational content. New viewers are shocked to learn she was once mocked. That disbelief is part of her legacy. It proves how fragile assumptions are when confronted with reality. She occasionally revisits that stage as a guest, never as a judge. She prefers standing beside contestants, not above them. Her presence alone alters the room. Those who recognize her understand the weight she carries. Those who don't soon learn. She doesn't lecture. She listens. In an industry obsessed with immediacy, her career has unfolded slowly, intentionally. That patience reflects the same discipline that carried her through that first performance when nobody expected anything from her. Her influence extended beyond music. She inspired conversations about how talent shows frame success, how audiences participate in judgment, and how cultural bias shapes perception. She never positioned herself as an activist, yet her existence in that space forced reflection. Schools invited her to speak, not about winning, but about endurance. She emphasized preparation over validation, discipline over visibility. These messages resonated because they came from experience, not theory. She remained grounded, often returning home, performing in community spaces without cameras. Those performances mattered most to her. They reminded her why she sang long before applause. In choosing where to give her energy, she demonstrated that success is not defined by scale, but by alignment with purpose. Critics who once dismissed her now cite her as a benchmark for authenticity. That reversal is telling. It exposes how easily gatekeepers mistake familiarity for quality. Her story disrupted that pattern. It reminded industries that greatness does not require translation. It requires attention. When asked what she would change about her journey, she answered honestly, nothing. The struggle refined her. The doubt clarified her priorities. The mockery tested her resolve. Without those elements, her win would have been hollow. That perspective distinguishes her from many success stories. She did not romanticize hardship, but she respected its role. Her gratitude was not directed at suffering, but at survival. That nuance shaped how audiences understood resilience through her example. As time passed, her win became less about a trophy and more about a shift in awareness. Talent shows began highlighting diversity differently, if imperfectly. Contestants cited her as inspiration, particularly those from marginalized backgrounds. She responded with encouragement, not promises. She understood that visibility does not guarantee opportunity, but it opens doors previously ignored. Her music evolved, incorporating broader influences while maintaining cultural integrity. Each release reflected growth rather than trend chasing. Audiences followed, trusting her judgment. That trust was earned through consistency. She never chased relevance. She built it. That distinction ensured longevity. In an industry driven by cycles, her career became a reminder that substance outlasts spectacle when nurtured with intention. International recognition followed gradually. Awards acknowledged her artistry. Critics praised her restraint. Yet she remained cautious about accolades. Praise, she learned, can be as blinding as criticism. Both distort focus. She surrounded herself with people who challenged her honestly. That circle protected her from complacency. When younger artists sought advice, she emphasized preparation over exposure. Viral moments fade. Skill endures. Her own journey illustrated that truth vividly. She often returned to that first audition mentally, not to relive triumph, but to remember vulnerability. That memory kept her grounded. It reminded her how quickly audiences judge and how powerful it is to remain steady regardless. That steadiness became her defining strength, both artistically and personal. The narrative surrounding her shifted from surprise to respect. That evolution mattered. It signaled learning. Yet she remained aware that change is uneven. For every door opened, others remained closed. She used her platform selectively, supporting programs that nurture grassroots talent without extracting spectacle. She funded workshops, not headlines. She mentored quietly. That approach reflected her belief that impact does not need amplification to be real. Her story continued to circulate, but she allowed it to speak for itself. When documentaries referenced her journey, they focused less on humiliation and more on perseverance. That reframing mattered. It ensured that her legacy was not defined by mockery overcome, but by excellence sustained. In retrospect, Asia's Got Talent was not the culmination of her story, but the pivot. It was the moment the world caught up to something that had existed for years. Her win forced audiences to confront how often they confuse confidence with worthiness. She had arrived without bravado and left with authority. That transformation was not visible on the surface. It was internal, affirmed by external recognition. She never claimed to have changed the industry. She simply showed what happens when authenticity is allowed to stand unfiltered. That demonstration proved more effective than protest. It offered an alternative narrative, one rooted in patience, discipline, and self-trust. Those values became central to how her story continues to be told. Today, when her name is mentioned, it carries weight. Not because of scandal or controversy, but because of consistency. New audiences discover her through that first viral clip, then follow the trail forward. They find an artist who never rushed, never begged, never compromised. That discovery often surprises them. In an era of instant fame, her trajectory feels almost defiant. Yet it is precisely that defiance that sustains her relevance. She does not perform to prove others wrong anymore. She performs to honor herself. That shift marks true success. It separates temporary validation from lasting fulfillment. Her journey illustrates that recognition is most meaningful when it arrives after self-acceptance, not before. The mockery that once defined public perception has been replaced by something quieter: respect. That transformation did not require confrontation or explanation. It required presence. Her voice did the work. Her choices reinforced it. In reflecting on her career, she often emphasizes listening. Listening to oneself. Listening to intention. Listening beyond noise. That philosophy guided her from obscurity to prominence without losing integrity. It is a lesson often overlooked in competitive spaces. Winning, she demonstrates, is not about defeating others. It is about refusing to abandon oneself under pressure. That refusal shaped every stage of her journey, from the first ignored audition to the moment her name was announced as the winner. Her story continues to inspire not because it is extraordinary, but because it is specific. It belongs to a Filipino woman who refused to dilute her identity to be palatable. That specificity gives it power. Audiences from different backgrounds find their own reflections within it. The competition provided a platform, but she provided the substance. That distinction ensures her relevance endures beyond formats and seasons. When Asia's Got Talent is eventually remembered, her win will stand out not for spectacle, but for correction. It corrected assumptions, expectations, and narratives. It reminded viewers that talent does not owe familiarity to be legitimate. Sometimes it simply waits for a moment of listening, then changes everything. In interviews, she is often asked what she felt when the mockery turned into applause. She answers honestly, relief, not triumph. Relief that she no longer had to carry disbelief alone. That response reveals the emotional cost of underestimation. Winning did not erase that cost, but it acknowledged it publicly. That acknowledgement mattered. It validated not just her journey, but the journeys of countless others navigating similar dismissals. She remains mindful of that responsibility without being burdened by it. Her focus stays on craft. Each performance remains intentional. Each decision reflects awareness earned through experience. That maturity distinguishes her from fleeting success stories. Her career is not a reaction. It is a continuation. As new talent shows emerge, her story is referenced less frequently by producers and more by contestants. That shift is telling. It means her influence has moved where it matters. Those standing backstage, doubting themselves, remember her. They remember how mockery failed to predict outcome. That memory steadies them. She has become proof rather than promise. Proof that staying true can be enough. Proof that patience can outlast prejudice. Proof that silence can be powerful when paired with preparation. Her journey does not guarantee success for others, but it expands the realm of possibility. That expansion is her lasting contribution to the industry and to those who dare to step onto stages where they are not expected. D. The Filipino singer everyone mocked is no longer defined by that phrase, yet it remains attached to her story for a reason. It captures the distance between perception and reality. It reminds audiences how easily talent is dismissed when it arrives without familiar signals. Her victory bridged that distance publicly. It turned mockery into reflection. That transformation is rare and valuable. She did not ask for sympathy. She offered excellence. In doing so, she changed the terms of engagement. Audiences learned to listen before judging, at least momentarily. That lesson continues to ripple outward. It influences how stories are told, how voices are evaluated, and how success is measured beyond applause. Essie. Her story ends where it began, with a voice choosing to be heard. Not louder, not different, just present. The stage that once felt intimidating became a platform for truth rather than validation. Winning Asia's Got Talent was not the climax, but the confirmation. Confirmation that dignity, discipline, and authenticity can prevail even in spaces designed for spectacle. The mockery did not define her. The applause did not complete her. What mattered was the choice she made every time she sang, to show up fully without apology. That choice transformed perception, corrected narratives, and left a lasting imprint on millions who witnessed it. In the end, she didn't just win a competition. She redefined what winning looks like.